welcome back to Cuckoo for Books. My name is Salva and today I bring you another book haul. I don't know what that accent was. That was dumb. We're doing another book haul. I just came back from a trip to the US. It was so busy, it was so hectic, but of course I still tried to make time to visit my nearest Barnes & Noble wherever I was staying there. There are certain books that you just can't find in the Philippine bookstores or some editions like the Barnes & Noble editions. So that's usually what I go for with these hauls. I'm gonna get the thumbnail one out of the way because this is the one I'm most excited for, but this is not one that I bought, but it's something that I got on the US trip. But technically I got it when I arrived, but my friend got it. You know what? I'm just gonna show it. It's this! So this is the Grishaverse poster that was available at the San Diego Comic-Con this year, and my friend went and he got me this as my birthday gift. It's so beautiful and it's bigger than I thought, and I'm gonna put it up right there on that wall. Look at all these fierce ladies. I'm a huge fan of the Grishaverse. I can't wait for the Netflix TV show. I can't wait for the second book of King of Scars. Whenever somebody's like, I'm not into YA, what do I read? I'm like, Six of Crows. And they were giving one out, I think, which means my friend didn't get one for himself and he got one for me, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, Eds. Also with it came let's see if I can do this. That was dumb. It also came with a Grishaverse passport that I think, from what my friend said, you stamp it every time you attend a new Grishaverse event. So he had one and he stamped his because that was his first event. I got my friend Ed's hooked on these books about last year, I think. The student has indeed become the master because he's at Comic-Con attending a Lee Bardugo panel and I'm not. But I'm very grateful that he got this poster for me, and he had it laminated, which is like the most extra, if you know Eds in real life, is the most extra Eds thing. Like, he's not just gonna give you a poster, he's gonna laminate it first before giving it to you. Moving on to the actual books in this book haul. So the first book, in no particular order, is The Royal We by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. If you've been on this channel long enough, like I said earlier, aside from Six of Crows, I love this book. This was my favorite book of 2015. I originally read the original copy. Yes, of course I read the original copy, but I read the first edition, I guess what you would say, and then they came out with a paperback with a bonus chapter. But the original paperback with a bonus chapter was not in this original. This is the original cover. It came out in this really, personally I didn't like it. It had like real people on it. There were like Polaroids, and it wasn't as epic as this cover. So I was like, I'm gonna hold off. I don't need to read it anyway. I've got time to reread it. The authors recently announced that they were writing a sequel. I was like, well, now I have an excuse to read it. Lo and behold, when I went looking for it, they republished the bonus chapter edition with the original cover. So of course I was like, I gotta have it. Quick summary of this book. So it's essentially a William and Kate story meeting at college, the long courtship. It's set in an alternate universe, so names are changed, but you kind of know what the authors are going for. Out of all the AUs I've ever read, they handled it so well. They knew what they were talking about. You knew that they knew their ish, and it made it one of my favorite books of 2015, and still to this day one of my favorite books. The next book on my list is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, and this has been on my wish list on Amazon for the longest time, although I did find this at the Barnes & Noble in Austin, Texas. It's a lot thinner than I expected. I was expecting it to be this heavy tome. This is a genre I tell people I love, but I've actually maybe have only read about 5 books in that genre, and it's the gothic horror genre. So this is one that I came across online, read the summary, and I was like, oh, interesting. This also might scare me. It will. No, for sure it will. So it's a typical story of girl meets boy. They fall in love, they get married, girl moves into boy's old mansion, but she finds a statue in his mansion that looks exactly like her. And she's kind of freaked out, and people don't really mind it. And then one day she finds out that the statue's eyes are following her. Great, I'm so ready to have nightmares. I love horror, but I can't handle horror. Knowing me, I will read this, love it, but also not be able to sleep for the next 3 months. The next book I got was The Dazzling Heights by Catherine McGee. This is the sequel to The 1000th Floor. It's set in Manhattan, 2118. Manhattan is now situated inside a 1,000-story building, and the entire book revolves around these 5 teenagers. This picks up right where the first book left off. You're probably expecting, like, why wouldn't this book be available here? It's such a big YA book. I've only ever seen paperbacks of this, and I like my covers to match. So my first book is hardbound, but all I could find were paperbacks of the second book. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, I better snatch this up before I go back home, and then I can't find any hardcovers of it anyway. So that's what I got. That's why I got this. Moving on. The next book I got, and this was off my Amazon order, it's Queen Victoria's Matchmaking, The Royal Marriages That Shaped Europe by Deborah Cadbury. Now this might be one of the more boring books in this haul because I know y'all are here for the YA and the action and the fantasy and you don't really want to read a book about Queen Victoria's matchmaking, but I do. My favorite historical nonfiction books are usually not the ones that revolve around a singular historical figure but around a group of them sharing an identical quality or a common quality, and in this case it's her grandchildren. The chapter heading alone is getting me excited. History excites me. But there's all a list of all her grandchildren and all the marriages, so that's what the chapters are all about, and I'm really excited. And also, it feels really good. I don't know how to describe this kind of cover, but it's like matte and grainy, but nice. Okay. No? Just me? Okay. The next book I got was an impulse buy at the bookstore. Now, these book hauls might make me seem like the kind of person who just runs into a bookstore and grabs everything and anything up and runs to the cashier. Most of the books I get, I've actually done research on and I've heard about before getting it. I never usually buy a book off the shelf and be like, oh, that's interesting, let me go get that. That being said, this is one of 3 books that I read the summary and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this book. This sounds way interesting. All you need to know about this book, which is The Witch of Willow Hall by Hester Fox, is the blurb. 2 centuries after the Salem witch trials, there's still one witch left in Massachusetts, but she doesn't even know it. The Salem witch trials is one of the topics that I've always wanted to learn more about, so I'm really happy that I found this book. And the cover, I mean, and it's got deckled pages, which I know not a lot of people like, but I do. The next book up on this giant pile that I've assembled over here is not Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It was the only book that was neither, and it is Where Am I Now? True Stories of Girlhood and Accidental Fame by Mara Wilson. Now, I was actually in the States to attend an OCD conference. I was a speaker there, but I spoke at this conference thing in Austin, Texas, and she was our keynote speaker, so she had a book signing and I had a picture with her, which maybe I will insert here. So I went, got it signed, and I did not know that this formerly adorable child actress also had OCD, and I went and sat at her keynote speech even though I was jet lagged as all hell. This book, when I saw it off of Amazon, I was like, how did I not know this book was being published this year? And it is Drina and Lilibet by Julia P. Ghilardi. Julia P. Ghilardi wrote Born to Rule, and it was about the 5 granddaughters of Queen Victoria who became queens. It was the first historical nonfiction biography book that I read. I never know what to call these books. They're historical royal nonfiction biographies. Maybe that's what you call it. I read it when I was 15 and I loved it. I've read all her books since then. For the longest time I was like, come out with another book, come out with another book. And she did! It was a little thinner than I expected. I mean, look at that. Usually her books cop out to like there, but what excited me about it was it looks like it's part of a series. In the author note at the beginning, she said, give a good review and hopefully we can fund this thing and get this thing going so I can write more of these series. And I was like, you bet I will write a review about this. I love you. The next book I got is a double feature. No, there's a reason. I'm not stupid. The next book I got was The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Yee. Now, I am a late fan of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. I only watched the series last year, and I still have not read The Legend of Korra. Watched. So this is the first, I believe, YA spin-off of the series. They've done graphic novels, but this is the first full-length YA book, and it's the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which means it includes creator art. I got 2 for my friend that I mentioned earlier, Ed, because I said it, I was in Barnes & Noble and I had Wi-Fi, and I was like, dude, you want it? It's an exclusive edition. He was like, yeah. Like I said, I'm not a super expert in this fandom. Would you guys recommend I read this after Korra and after the graphic novels? Let me know in what order I should devour these puppies. No, I meant puppy, like the books. I don't know. So let me know in what order I should read the book, the graphic novel, and Korra. That was really violent. No! I also picked up, this was one of my auto-buy authors, and I will read anything she comes out with. It's Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. She wrote one of my favorite novels of all time, The 13th Tale, that was made into a BBC movie that pisses me off to this day. I'm going into this one blind, but for all y'all watching, I'm gonna read the summary. It feels very Gregory Maguire, the author of Wicked, in its summary. The tagline is 3 girls are missing, 1 is returned, a story begins. And it's about this girl who washes up on the river and nobody knows where she came from. They mention things like inns and magic and midwinter and tapestries. I'm liking the picture she's painting with that summary. This is another book that I was really glad to have found. And also, it's 20% off, and members save an extra 10%. Efficient. The next book I just remembered, and I'm gonna say it now before I forget. It's not with me at the moment because I did not have enough room in my luggage, so I was like, hey mom, can you put this in your luggage? So it's with her and her luggage right now. But it's The Summer Queen by Elizabeth Chadwick, and it's about Eleanor of Aquitaine, a historical figure. She was a queen, and I believe she's the only queen ever in history to be a queen consort of both France and England. And I've only ever read Eleanor of Aquitaine books that are standalone, so this is the first in a series, so I'm excited to see how the author is gonna stretch out her tale. So the last book that I ordered off of Amazon was The Girl Empress by Amy Mantravadi, and this is called The Chronicle of Maud. Now this Maud, apparently, which I did not know, was another name for Matilda, who was technically the first Empress of England. She wasn't crowned, or she was crowned, but she never ruled, and so her name really isn't on the lists of rulers of England. I first learned about Matilda in this Netflix documentary I watched. Talking about books and I'm reading Netflix, what? But I watched this documentary called She-Wolves. This lady historian named Dr. Helen Castor narrates it, and she has the most soothing voice. I swear, this isn't an insult to the series at all, but if I want a good night's sleep, I play it before I sleep. And it's so soothing, and I love just hearing all these stories about all these queens of England. The first episode revolved around Matilda, so that's how I learned about it. I've never really heard about her before or seen historical fiction about her, so that's why I got this, and I'm really excited to pick it up. The next book I got was my second, like, off-the-shelf, off-the-counter impulsive buy, and it's called I Was Anastasia by Ariel Lawhon. I'm a huge fan of the Romanov people. I don't know what you call the dynasty, the Romanov dynasty. And in fact, I have some words to say about the Netflix show The Last Tsars. I've read my fair share of Romanov books, but what intrigued me about this one is that it shifts point of views between Anastasia and Anna Anderson. I feel like I've never read a book from the point of view of Anna Anderson. If you guys don't know, she was the one who claimed she was Anastasia and that she actually survived the massacre. So to see a book that deals with both of them is very intriguing. And I flipped open the book and there was a character named Dimitri. So I'm not sure if it's the same Dimitri, if he plays the same role as in the movie, but I love me some Dimitri. I love that character. Oh my goodness. The last sort of impulse buy, but I think you will agree with me on this, I got Iron, Fire, and Ice, The Real History That Inspired Game of Thrones by Ed West. Now, it looks really well written, and I'm really excited to delve into this. There was one chapter I saw that connected grayscale to real life historical events, and I'm like, if you're able to put that together, then this is gonna be an interesting book to read. Another YA book I got, it was a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and I've been wanting to get this, and now I do, and it's a good thing I waited for it. It is 4 Dead Queens by Astrid Schulte. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I mean, it's a fantasy murder mystery. There are 4 dead queens. Who killed the 4 dead queens? I love fantasy, I love murder mysteries. I'm curious. And in the exclusive edition, it says there's a bonus epilogue and original illustration included. I have not read Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas yet, and it's her final book in her Throne of Glass series. It's been out for quite some time. I have a copy, have never gotten around to reading it just because I have this thing where if it's a big book to me, I put it off as long as possible because I get anxious and I need time to calm down, and if I'm just gonna get overwhelmed. But I now know why I have not read it yet, because again, like 4 Dead Queens, the universe is waiting for me to pick up the Barnes & Noble edition. Full color poster and more inside. I like how it says more inside and it's not quite specific like the other book. It's just like more. You're gonna have to find out what's more. This is the final book and I'm not ready. I don't want to say goodbye yet, which is probably why I've been putting off reading it. The last book that I got for this book haul, last novel I should say, would be Again by Better by Christine Riccio. You probably know her on the interwebs as Xtine May or Poland Bananas books, and she is one of the booktubers that pioneered this whole movement. I think I kept watching her and I was like, man, I wish I could do what she does, and I was like, wait, I can set up a Google account and a YouTube account as well. I'm gonna do what she does. Obviously not on the same scale. She has a published book and thousands of subscribers, but anyway. So this is about a college student who does a term in London for, I guess, the study abroad program. I'm very interested because I do love books about second chances. That's something I relate to a lot in life and all the aspects of my life, so I really do enjoy books about second chances. And of course it's by a booktuber extraordinaire, so I can't wait to read this one and be jealous that she's managed to write a book and I haven't. I'm legit not salty. I'm very, very happy for all those who get to write a book. I'm like, I genuinely wish I could be as responsible and as creative as you guys are someday, because I'm a lazy butt. The last thing I got is, now that I think about it, is pretty anticlimactic because it's not really a book. It's a coffee table book. Kings and Queens, a chronicle of history's most interesting monarchies. This sounds so geeky. You're probably turning this video off right now because y'all are here for the YA and you don't want to read a coffee table book about history. But I love these books. Look it! Boring for you, exciting for me. I think I like coffee table books because I'm not pressured to read them. They're literally books that you just peruse and never read end to end, and that's why I love them, because there's no pressure. And that about does it for my US jet lag book haul. I don't know what I'm gonna call this yet. You can follow me on Twitter at Cuckoo for Books and also on Instagram at Cuckoo for Books, but also at Salva Villarasa. Please subscribe. That sounded so beggy. Please subscribe. But I will see you guys very soon. Bye guys.